The views and content expressed on the following program are provided solely for informational and entertainment purposes. They do not constitute legal advice. A podcast is not a substitute for retaining a competent, licensed attorney to advise you on your specific legal situation.
Break the business, play is work and work is play. Power into creators, have fun along the way. Break the business, doing what it takes. Celebrate success and learn from the mistakes.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the show. It is time for Break the Business, where we empower indie creators and have some fun along the way. I'm Ryan Kairalla, and it is a pleasure to have you here this week. What a fine program we have in store for you. Obviously, I think me and all the hardworking people that make this show possible, we bring it for you every week. We try to give you great stuff, great guests, great conversations week in and week out. But every once in a while, a show week comes along that I'm particularly proud of, that I am particularly excited to bring to all of you, because I really think that we seriously did our job this week. We've brought the information, we've brought the entertainment. We are definitely going to inform, but have some fun along the way. Excited in our next segment for our guest, fantastic recording artist, songwriter, producer, and a bit of a social entrepreneurship streak about her. She is the co-founder of Mamas in Music, a global nonprofit that supports mothers and caregivers in the music industry. If there's a more admirable goal in this business, I can't think of one. Definitely a worthy social endeavor. Excited to talk to Tiff all about her work. She's really talented. She makes great art. She does some great nonprofit stuff that we talked about. She's got a lot of her songs placed in some pretty cool media properties. She's had like one of the most significant songs in the Percy Jackson universe that y'all might know. And excited to talk to her all about that. That's going to be a blast. Speaking of people that we always love to talk to around here, let's go ahead and bring in our co-host this week, Zach Sloan. How's it going, Zach?
Ryan Kairalla. You, my friend, in 2 consecutive weeks, stopped me dead in my tracks laughing because of something you've said on your podcast. And I applaud you for that, sir.
You know that I'm always happy to hear about anything that made you laugh. What did I say possibly that could have made you laugh in a past episode?
Okay, a couple episodes ago, you said I'm just another bald podcaster, which for whatever reason just cracked me up. Because like I can picture the podcast sphere, and I was like, yeah, but you're cool, Ryan. And so that actually made me laugh. Last week's
still getting used to the bald head and like seeing it in the camera. When I close my eyes and imagine myself, I still don't imagine bald head and beard. I think it's going to be like at least 3 or 4 years of living my life with this appearance before I get used to it. I still don't recognize the man I see on camera right now.
Dude, that look is so cool that now that's in my head. That's all you've ever been. It's awesome. The second thing,
when you were 10 years old, you were beard and bald.
Yeah, I mean, dude, and then your whole thing, like the whole first segment last week about the Muppets had me freaking rolling. I really enjoyed that. I actually went back and listened to some parts again a second time because it was just so entertaining. So well done, sir.
Well, that's very, very kind. And I will say this, almost to my chagrin, that you are not the only person out in podcast land who had a positive feeling from my Muppets take last week. And so let's talk about this since you brought it up. I say to my chagrin because I've been talking on this show for about 10 years now, and I've been trying to say things that I think are important, things that I think are informative, and I always like it when I get feedback from listeners saying, hey, Ryan, that advice you gave last week, that was really valuable to me. Thank you. Or, hey, that segment you did, super informative. I got a lot out of it. But I would say at no time in the last 10 years have I gotten more positive listener feedback, not from anything informative I've said in the last decade, but from the damn Muppets take that I had last week, where if you weren't watching or listening last week, I basically spent about 15 to 20 minutes of showtime just
25.
What was 20? I think we might. Okay, I'll admit it. We ate up the whole first segment And even some of the interview of me just angrily ranting about how mad I was that the Muppets are going to be on Broadway, except they're not going to actually sing or dance or do musical things. They're just going to be the backing group for a magician who's going to be on Broadway for 2 weeks. And it's just a woeful underutilization of the Muppets and every wonderful thing about them. And apparently, Zach, this struck a chord with you and all of our listeners because I got a ton of emails saying, yes, you're so right. I had no idea, Zach, how many Muppet fans amongst the Break the Business army that we have. But apparently those two things intersect. Maybe because I gesticulate my arms on camera as wildly as Kermit the Frog does. And so people resonate with that. But yeah, this is the thing that lights people up, Zach. Not any of the entertainment law advice I've been giving for 10 years. I talk about the Muppets, and that's the thing people want to email me about.
Well, I think there's a double-edged sword to this, right? Like on the one hand, the information is what initially drew me to the show, right? Like I cared about that back when I was just a fan back in the day. But the thing that I think keeps people around is like some of those funny pop culture things. Like the music business is hard. Like we're all eating the crap sandwich together. That's not just music. That's any indie creator. So anytime there's something just fun that we can all sort of rally around, I think that's kind of the life preserver for the creators. And so I think it may be more important than you are giving credit for it.
I will say this, because at first I sort of thought that like me yelling about the Muppets and them being underutilized on Broadway didn't really have a fit on this show because, you know, we're an entertainment show, but we don't really focus on musical theater that much or what happens on Broadway. We've had a couple Broadway performers on the show, but it's not really our niche. Right. And so as I was bringing up this topic, I felt guilty because I was like, oh, you know, this is wasting time. This isn't really to the theme of our show. But I think as I've thought about this over the past week, Zach, I think I have the reason why this Muppets thing really makes me upset, other than just my Muppets fandom, right? As a Muppets fan, I want to see the Muppets have a real Broadway show and not just do this stupid thing with a magician for 2 weeks, because I think a Muppets Broadway show would be amazing. But I think what makes me really upset about what happens here, and this does directly relate to kind of the themes that we talk about on their show, is think about why this happens. Why do the Muppets... why do the Muppets end up on Broadway, not with their own full-fledged show, but with this stupid little thing with a magician for 2 weeks? And the answer is the same reason why there's so many problems in the entertainment industry and why so many artists who are amazing are not getting the opportunities they used to get. And it's that the entertainment industry, and particularly the decision makers in this industry, have gotten so risk-averse, have gotten so afraid of failing, and so afraid of taking the big swings that can make a lot of money but come with some risk, that instead they just go for the base hits. They just go for the things that will make a little bit of money and have no risk, but are not artistically impressive and will not become the smash hits that run for 20 years. And so if you want to know why the Muppets are never going to get a big-time Broadway show that has like a lot of money and a lot of resources behind it, is that nobody's ever going to get fired just by licensing the Muppets to a magician. It's low risk, it's low reward, but it can't fail. It won't make a lot of money, but it can't fail. And so whoever signs off on that project never has to worry about losing their job. And that by the way, and that's the same reason why record labels, you know, don't like to break new acts anymore and instead just try to make money off their old catalogs as much as they can. It's the reason why movie studios aren't greenlighting original movies anymore and instead just lean on sequels and adaptations and remakes and old IP, because it's riskless and it's a surefire profit. But again, it doesn't take the big swings. It's not creatively ambitious, and it doesn't lead to the big time profitable opportunities that come from actually starting new things in art. And so the Muppets just being on Broadway for 2 weeks with a magician is a symptom of a greater problem in the entertainment industry right now. And I'm not sure what the solution is. Like, the people who greenlight projects have to get more guts, man.
Well, I'll tell you, here's my pitch. Are you ready for my Muppets pitch?
I'm always here for Muppet pitches. As I said last week, I don't think you could put the Muppets in any situation and it works.
Yeah, except with the magician.
Except with a 2-week Broadway engagement with a magician. That's the only thing they could do wrong, and they did that.
Do you remember back in the day, there was a VH1 show called Behind the Music?
It was only like the most important show of my young life.
Yeah,
and I miss it terribly.
I suspected you would be familiar. My idea is that you do the Muppets as like the various band members, and you combine like this background talking about bands, real or fake, and then your musical guests are the singers from real bands. So it's like a combination of Behind the Music and like Rock of Ages. Because I just think we need more animal in our life. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's the best way to showcase animal.
Oh yeah, but you get the whole band, right? You get Dr. Teeth, and you get Janice, and you get Rolf, and and there's producer Lauren just put up Animal. Boy, just amazing timing with that. She just came in right when you brought up Animal. She did that for me last week when I mentioned Swedish Chef, and within like 5 seconds, Swedish Chef was on screen.
I do have to talk to you about Swedish Chef, sir.
Okay, what do you have to tell me about Swedish Chef?
All of the Muppet stickers are on my desk.
See, boom, right there. There's Swedish Chef. As somebody who's Swedish, I have to say that I took no offense to your sweet love for the Swedish Chef. I realize there's some people out there that think Swedish Chef is offensive. I assure you, he is not.
I mean, so, like, if you do you actually have a beat on this within the Swedish community? What is the Swedish communities? I don't know. Like, I've always wondered, like, what do Swedish people think of the Swedish Chef? Because as I noted last week, I have just an unusual affinity for him. Like, it just tickles me the right way. I like to think that my sense of humor is pretty highbrow. I don't tend to go for just like, silly kind of stuff. Like, I demand a little wit in my life, except for the Swedish Chef. When that chef shows up and does literally anything, the moment he starts flailing wildly and talking about cooking the shrimpies and like throwing his spatula in the air, I cannot stop laughing. It is the highest form of comedy in my eyes. But like, I don't know, is this offensive to the Swedes?
I mean, not to this person who's distantly Swedish. I can't imagine anybody takes that too terribly serious. Like, it's kind of, I feel like you're allowed to make fun of like Northern Europe. I think that's all right. Like, Europe, any of the Scandinavian area, I think you can make fun of it. It's cool.
Yeah, they got free healthcare. They don't mind.
What do they care? What do they got to be mad about? Come on.
Like, oh no, you made fun of us with the Muppets, and all we have to do to heal ourselves is our free education system and our free medical system and the #1 education system in the world.
Yeah, and our schools that are actually safe so that children. I think they've got us beat, dude.
Oh man.
Yeah, I'm just saying I don't think the Swedes care.
Those delightful Scandinavians. I am really excited, Zach, to talk with our guest Tiff Randall in the second segment, and I know you are too, because I would say among all of our co-hosts, you take a particularly keen interest in our guests. You love to do deep dive into their records. You get into their music. You love talking to them. And I feel like from what you were telling me, you're really excited to talk to Tiff Randall.
Dude, I want to talk to her about music, and I want to talk to her about album art, because her album art is like top tier. I don't know where she gets her concepts and how she does it, but like, and she's one of the few artists, and I'll certainly talk to her about this, whose album art really does reflect the records really well. I feel like sometimes people make just cool album art, but it's not really related to the music, and so there's a disconnect. She has threaded that needle perfectly, and I cannot wait to talk to her about it.
Make a note, Zach. We will make sure that you talk to her about album art. That is a art form that we do not explore nearly enough in our interviews, and so if we have a guest who's good at it, let's definitely talk to them all about it. I want to talk to her about the work, the stuff she's done in terms of sync projects with media. For the people who know Tiff, a lot of people know her for having sort of like the title track to the Percy Jackson Sea of Monsters film. And so a lot of people, when they think of her, they think of that movie, and that movie and that song are all basically synonymous with each other. And I'd love to hear about how that opportunity came about and how closely she got to work with the people on that movie, because like that song is like woven within the film. So I can't imagine she was just sort of a mercenary who wrote a song and they just stapled the song to the movie. Like, she must have been actively involved with that production because of how integrated that song is. I also love Percy Jackson because it reminds me of like one of my favorite pop culture things that I like to do that I've never gotten anybody else interested in doing. It's just my silly pop culture thing, but maybe I can get you into it, Zach. But I like Percy Jackson and the Olympians for the same reason that I like any movie or TV show title that has "and the" in the title that sounds like it would be an amazing band name. So imagine, Zach, you're walking through LA, right? You're trying to check out like a good venue for something. And like, you walk into Whiskey A Go-Go, you figure out, you don't know who's playing that night, but if they're playing there, it's going to be a good show. So you walk in and you see on the poster tonight at Whiskey A Go-Go, Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Tell me you are not just excited for what has to be like the most amazing 70s style R&B band you've ever heard in your life that's going to sound tight as hell. Like Percy Jackson and the Olympians would blow the doors off that venue.
I think you're onto something. I think that works pretty well. There's got to be an edge case where it doesn't work though.
I mean, I think there are, but
I think it's overall pretty solid.
So like, for example, another one I like, Ant-Man and the Wasp, I think sounds like an amazing prog rock duo, right? Ant-Man and the Wasp is absolutely opening for the Alan Parsons Project. Maybe doing a couple shows with Devo in the 80s, but Ant-Man and the Wasp, they're amazing. That's just like a super cool, like, male, female prog rock duo. And they're awesome.
But I'm going to say they're more metal than all those other acts you've talked about.
Well, if you want a metal act, Zach Sloan, look no further. All right. You're going into like the biggest kind of metal venue in Denver. All right. And who is playing but Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom?
All right.
I mean, they're like your hair is going to catch fire when that band shows up. So, I mean, if there's a band if there's a movie title where it doesn't work, I haven't found it yet, because all of those would sound like amazing bands. I would be such a Percy Jackson and the Olympians fan. Like, I feel like your Motown loving uncle like has got just a bunch of Percy Jackson and the Olympians albums. Well, it'd be sick. Like there's something here. There's something here. Although I seem to be the only person who feels that way, because whenever I've like floated this on Blue Sky or Twitter, I get crickets from people.
Okay, I got the one that doesn't work.
Okay.
Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh, shut your mouth, because that works so great.
No.
Willy Wonka, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory?
No.
That would be, dude, Zach, that band would be so unbelievably tight. All right, the year is 1976, okay? You're tuning into Soul Train. And Don Cornelius, it's the end of the show. The band on tonight, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the best damn funk band that has ever come on that show. You know that band is tight as hell, man.
Dude, all I can say is that when I listen to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, I'm guessing that Gigi Allen is their singer, and nobody who's listening right now probably knows who Gigi Allen is. And for the love of God,
I'm gonna have to look that
do
one
not
up.
Google it. Don't do it.
Gigi Allen?
Don't do it, Ryan. You're gonna regret it. You'll have to light your computer on fire. I'm just saying that I can't hear that without thinking of Gigi Allen. So. And that's ruined it for me.
That sounds like a post-show project for me to explore. But anyway, lest I get wild, between this and the Muppets, I continue to just drag this show completely off topic. But I promise you, viewers and listeners, we won't ask Tiff Randall any questions about any of that. Instead, we will focus on the many, many things that she's good at in the music and nonprofit space. But before we bring her in, Zach, I want to talk with you in particular about this topic that I think is just so Zach. Like, everything about this, you would have a lot of great answers to this question. and your experience can be brought to bear here. So I've been spending a lot of time lately, Zach, on the musicians subreddit of Reddit. I love it a lot. 9 out of 10 posts on that subreddit are usually like the most depressing things you've ever seen, just like musicians just being very sad. Or like saying, hey, I got this contract. It's 1 page long. The word record contract is spelled wrong on it. Should I take this deal? And then like a bunch of people are like, yeah, sounds good, dude, do it. But every once in a while, Zach, you get a post on the musicians subreddit that's an absolute banger, and it encourages some great chatter, and you get some awesome insights from people. And I think we got one of those recently. The topic of this subreddit that I read was, what is a lesson that you learned the hard way as a musician that you wish someone had told you sooner? And the responses that we got, Zach, were just incredible. I enjoyed reading them. It reminded me of a lot of my own lessons. But before we get into some of these, Zach, I pose that to you. In all of your years in music, what is a lesson that you wish you had learned sooner?
You're not, this sounds really cruel, but I don't mean it to be. You're not as special as you think you are. Like, you're just not. A lot of musicians have great stories. A lot of musicians have unique stories. You need to find what you're good at and really focus on that and really dial in that way. The most success I've ever had as a producer, as a musician, as an artist came when I identified the 1 or 2 things I was really good at and just did that thing. I'm currently working on a weird like proggy album just for fun. I know it will go nowhere because I know it's not really my wheelhouse. It's just something I'm doing for myself.
It's no Ant-Man and the Wasp for sure.
I'll tell you what, it'll give them a run for their money. But seriously, like the most success I had is when I realized, when I stepped back and I said, maybe I'm better off not being the front man in a band. Maybe I'm more Keith Richards than Mick Jagger, you know? And so I think that's a really valuable lesson that I had to learn. It took me a long time. I mean, it wasn't until Dear Marcia called me up that I really swallowed that pill.
And you feel like had you come to that conclusion earlier in your life, you might have spared yourself some heartache?
Yeah, I'm a good performer. I am not a great singer, if that makes sense. And I think in this world, there is room for a Bob Dylan kind of thing. Not that that's what I'm comparing myself to, but like you can have a really unique voice, but you better be really, really freaking unique, or you better be really, really good. I was kind of neither, so I should have just spent all that time as a guitar player. Mm. Another one, can I tell you the one that I found on the thread that I thought was the best?
Yes, I was going to run through some of my best, but I want to hear your best. Maybe we have some intersection here.
This is one that I think a lot of musicians need to know. Your friends and family are not your fan base. Stop. Like, you can't expect them to come to gigs. They'll come to 1 or 2 because they love you, but they are not your fan base. You have to build fans from scratch. I don't care how many friends you have.
Yeah, like that one definitely resonated with me. And it tied into another one that I read that I think is helpful in sort of showing people how it happens, right? This person on this subreddit, this post that I read, basically just summarized like how to make a music career happen and build a fan base in a single paragraph, right? I spent a whole book writing about this. I've seen it, there have been people who've written several books on this topic. I feel like this person kind of nailed the formula in a paragraph. I just want to read this to you here. This person writes, I spent months refreshing my Spotify dashboard, hoping the graph would jump, but nothing lasting came from it. Things changed when I stopped worrying about how many people heard the track and focused on giving the few who did a way to stick around. I set up a website, put the newest song up front, added a bio, and put a mailing list sign up right there on the homepage. Now when someone clicks through from a playlist or a Reddit post, they can sign up before the scroll drags them away. Those emails turn into real support, first day streams, feedback, merch sales, and a few local gigs because bookers like seeing everything in one place. A couple hundred people on that list have done more for my releases than 10,000 silent plays ever did. Word. Zach, I think building the email list it's like that's what they say about planting a tree, right? The best time to start is 10 years ago, but the second best time is today. Like, if this isn't something that you're doing, if that paragraph I just read to you is foreign to you, start tomorrow, because this person is absolutely right. You can do so much with just a few email addresses than you can do with mountains of Spotify listens.
Those email lists, and those people who care enough to sign up to your email list are the same people who care enough to buy your album when you actually press it, right? Like the random Spotify listener they're not invested in you. Those people have taken the extra step to show their investment. And so rewarding them, I think, is one of the most important things you can do. I love almost everything about that paragraph. I think that's pretty solid stuff.
The email list, it's sort of like your give a damn filter, right?
Right.
You want to find out who the fans are that give a damn. And you'll find that if a fan at least can take the 10 seconds required to type in their email list, maybe click a verification link, that's a pretty good way of knowing that they have that requisite small, infinitesimal, but nonetheless important amount of give a damn that they actually are willing to make a bigger investment in your career. And it's useful to know who those people are, even if it's not nearly as big as the number of people on your X follower count.
Right. And I think we're also at a point where we all kind of realize that those Spotify numbers are cool, but they're mostly vanity numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like your email list is the real number that you care about. In Dear Marcia, we hang our hat on, we don't worry about Spotify numbers. We worry about ticket sales. That's how we gauge how well we're doing. If our ticket sales go down, we got a problem. And
that's a good metric, especially for a band like that plays live so much. Like, it's nice to have that very easy metric to follow. How about this piece of advice, Zach, that I read from that subreddit post that must speak to you as a producer, right? Somebody whose job it is to actually make sure that the thing gets done.
I know what you're going to say.
The post reads, "Done is better than perfect." There was a singer-songwriter who once said something like, "You spend 15 years writing the first album and 15 weeks writing the second." I'm sure that all of that just resonates with you.
Totally. In fact, I would take that one step further. One of my favorite guitar players, Keith Nelson, used to be in Buckcherry, once said, "You have your entire life to make your first record. You have 6 months to make your second." He's like, that's why there's a sophomore slump, is that your ideas, you have all this time and all this prep, and there's not a time, like there's no deadline for your first album. But if your record company, or if you just want to do a second album, your fans want a second album, there is a time constraint. Another one in there that was similar is that, perfect is the enemy of good. Mm-hmm. And it was like, I think I actually want to talk to our guest about that too, because I read an interview where she talks about this. It ain't no good if it's not out there, right? If it's 99% finished on your computer, nobody else can hear it but you.
Yeah. Gosh. And I think that's a difficult pill for musicians to swallow. It's hard advice to take, because I don't think you get into that. I don't think you get into the artistry business if you're not something of a perfectionist, right? The impulse required to learn how to play a guitar, or learn how to play a piano, or learn how to write songs really, really well requires something of a perfectionist mindset. And so it can be really hard for creators to turn that switch off when they start making music for people to enjoy, where you can say, okay, this is good enough. If I spend another year on it, it's only going to get 1% better.
Right.
And it's not good enough to, that's not enough of an improvement to not put this out now and let people enjoy it.
For sure. And that is difficult. But hey, here we are. Get it done and get it released, or else nobody can enjoy it.
Now, I like this piece of advice because it speaks to the work I do as an entertainment lawyer. From the post, this person writes, "Just signed any record deal." So the mistake they made was that they just signed any record deal that they would get because they were excited. Later, I figured out they bleeped me over big time. Always read your contracts. If you don't understand them, there are people that can help you, like lawyers. I mean, it's almost like a lawyer wrote that. I might have actually logged in there and written that one. But so glad a musician, like, I'm sorry a musician had to learn that the hard way and write about it in Reddit, but I'm glad that other musicians are hearing that message. Lawyers like us are helpful, and hiring one of us for an hour to read a contract is a lot cheaper than how much money you're going to lose if you sign a bad contract.
Well, and I think so often artists are baited into this thing of like, if you don't do this right now, we have 10,000 others who want to do it. And that is a real difficult push-pull. However, getting screwed is really bad.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, Ryan, have you checked out the documentary that's been made? It's a documentary, like sort of like a miniseries about the show The Biggest Loser.
No, I did. Tell me about this, because I did see like some post by Jillian Michaels where she was upset about some of that. Can you catch me up on some of this drama before we go to break?
So the biggest thing that I saw, that like when I was watching it, my wife and I are watching it together, and when they said this, I had a visceral reaction. They brought the potential contestants to a hotel in isolation, explained how this was going to be a life-changing event, and gave them the contracts. And when one of them said, "Can I get a lawyer?" they said, "Sure, but we have other people outside who will just bring in. So you decide if you actually want to get that reviewed or not."
Whoa.
And like, I'm like, this is the pressure of the entertainment industry, right? It's not just The Biggest Loser that does crap like that. That being said, when that woman went on to explain her experience in The Biggest Loser, I really got the impression that she wished she had somebody read that contract.
I can imagine. God, like that's, I mean, I wish that I could say that kind of stuff is an isolated incident in reality television, but for somebody who has had to be involved with clients who have gotten involved with these reality shows and I got some horror stories. Unfortunately, that can be par for the course. But God, that's I got to check out this documentary, Zach.
Check it. It's great.
Before we go to break, I have a lesson I've learned as a musician. Though I am certainly not a career musician, and I think I played my last ever gig as a musician when I was like 17 years old, when I played in like a high school garage band at a house party. But I did learn a lesson from that brief time as a musician that I think is still worth sharing to everybody. And that lesson is this. Don't put your guitar amplifier in the front seat of your car when you drive to a gig, unless you want that amplifier to crack your windshield from the inside at the first red light you hit. So I didn't get a chance to put that one in the Reddit, but there it is for everybody to enjoy. That was a very harsh lesson for both me and my 1990 Honda Accord. Let us take a quick break, and we will be joined by Tiff Randall next on Break the Business. Break the Business is presented in cooperation with Ryan Kairalla, PA. Ryan Kairalla, PA is a law firm providing transactional entertainment legal services, including contracts, business formation, commercial law, copyright, trademark, and more. Ryan Kairalla, PA, Miami, Florida. rkpalaw.com.
Streaming services for Break the Business provided by LEK Entertainment. LEK Entertainment is a full-service entertainment company offering everything from consultations to full-scale events and productions, including audio and video productions, voiceovers, staged theatrical productions, script and music development, and streaming services. For more information, visit lekentertainment.com. LEK Entertainment wants to help you bring your story to life.
Thanks for supporting Break the Business. If you have a question or topic that you want us to discuss, email us at breakthebusiness@gmail.com. You can follow the host, that's me, on Twitter at Ryan Kair, and you can follow the show at the BTB Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, and on all major podcast platforms. And now, let's get back to the show. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Ryan Kairalla here with Zach Sloan, just having a grand old time. Zach, I want to take a moment before we bring in our guest to do something I should be doing a lot more often on this show, which is just drowning the show in praise for our producer, Lauren, who keeps all of this afloat, keeps us sounding and looking good and, handling so many things behind the scenes that you don't have to see or worry about because that's how good of a job that she does. And our friends at StreamYard, which are the live streaming platform that keeps, that allows us to stream this show to Twitch and to our live streaming partner at volume.com and put it on all the podcasting platforms and all of that. StreamYard has given us a little gift and has given producer Lauren a little gift. When we logged into StreamYard today, we found out that StreamYard has created a sound effects feature. So now, at any time during the show, producer Lauren can just launch into some weird-ass sound effects that she can just, play in the middle of the show. And so, what, y'all don't like the sound effects? This studio audience, I can't believe it. So,
That's my favorite.
that is, okay, I was going to ask producer Lauren what her top 3 of the StreamYard sound effects are. I feel like we already got 2 of them. I can tell you my number 1 is the dude screaming. Can we hear him again?
It's like a 16-year-old Arnold Schwarzenegger on an N64.
That's exactly what it sounds like. A prepubescent Arnold Schwarzenegger. You can really feel it in the throat. Something is gurgling up in that esophagus. One more time with that. It's fantastic. I really do get young Schwarzenegger from that. That's a good pull, Zach. All right. Do you have any other spectacular sound effects from our StreamYard board? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I love how the audience just stops on a dime like that, like they're trained seaters or something. You can just imagine there's some producer warming up the crowd who has the hands up and then they just throw their hand down when they want the crowd to stop. That's kind of what's going on there. Okay. Any more funny ones? Okay. Yeah. I was really expecting the, I was going to say, I'm really expecting the sound at the end of Wile E. Coyote falling off the cliff. And we got the payoff there with the little boing. Can I get the boing one more time? Okay, last stupid sound effect. Let's go ahead and bring in our guest this week who deserves way more, way less silliness than we just subjected her to there, because she's amazing. Our guest this week is an artist, composer, producer, and the co-founder of Mamas in Music, a global nonprofit that supports mothers and caregivers in the music industry. You can find out more about our guest's work by visiting mamasinmusic.org. I am EveAMI.com and TiffRandall.com. We are happy to welcome Tiff Randall on to Break the Business. Hi, Tiff.
Hi, nice to be here.
So glad that you did not run away from the show screaming when we just evolved into Muppets talk and stupid sound effects. Thank you for hanging with us.
You got me triggered about the Muppets,
Are you a Muppets fan? Or have we found a fellow kindred spirit here?
Who isn't?
That's what I'm saying.
Everybody's missed the whole, the easy sale for Muppets on Broadway, which is A Christmas Carol. Come on.
Tiff, yes, that's what I'm talking about. Muppet Christmas Carol on Broadway would be spectacular. Bring Michael Caine back as Ebenezer Scrooge. You got it. God. Tiff Randall's got this. Why doesn't the rest of the industry figure this out? What's that?
I said you need the brand sale. It's the legacy of the.
I mean, that's the type of thing that I would gladly go to, and I could convince anybody in my family to go to. I've tried to take my in-laws to Avenue Q, and they just won't do it. But Christmas Carol, they'll do that.
Oh my God! Muppet Christmas Carol is automatic Christmas viewing in the Kairalla household. It is a very special film. All right, to all things Tiff Randall here. Okay, I think a great place to start with you, Tiff, is actually your artist bio. I love memorable lines in artist bios, and I think you give us a particularly good one. I just want to read this so we can all just bask in this, because I think it describes you so beautifully. Quote, Tiff is a triple water sign, cat-loving, globe-trotting, neurodivergent, witchy human who loves to push boundaries, build community, unravel the onion, and advocate for a better and more inclusive world. We should all hope to live our lives the exact same way. What have you been doing lately, Tiff, that embodies some of this? What onions have you unraveled?
Oh God, every day we have some onions. I mean, lately we've just been traveling, moving between different places all over the place. I have like my 7-year-old, I've got Mamas and Music, I'm working on new music coming out. And so I think lately I've been spending some time in upstate New York, and that's also a place where I grew up and always feel like is home. So when I come home to this area, I can feel like my nervous system just completely shift. That's been really interesting because, I've always been spending a lot of time in cities like New York to LA and, living all over the place. So it's been, I think, the thing that's been interesting lately is kind of surrendering to how my nervous system feels when I get into like the trees and an area that completely calms me down. It's so interesting after like years and years of just like go, 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 go in cities. And this, that was how I was acclimated for so long. And to go into that setting and then come back and be like, wow, how different I feel in these different places is so interesting to me. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's been my recent onion.
Well, I mean, and from everything that you do, I can't imagine that there are too many raveled onions in your life. You're just unraveling them everywhere you go.
Yeah.
When I think that point you made about environments is intriguing. What sort of environment do you need to be the most creative? Like, do you have to be in like the madness crowded world, or are you able to create more when things are peaceful and spread out, like in upstate New York?
Yeah, I think lately, I think when I'm in upstate, I think when I have like a quiet space, when I can get into regular rhythms, and when I can focus my energy. Yeah, I think it's helping me kind of take a different approach with my music, to really like be able to sit with it and, I don't know, long lens it
Yeah.
in a way that maybe I wouldn't be doing as much if I was kind of spinning in like the let's move energy that I would be doing elsewhere.
For sure. I'd like to talk to you a bit about the process of contributing to the music to Percy Jackson's Sea of Monsters. I want to talk to you about Percy Jackson. I promise you, I won't subject you to the discussion of whether Percy Jackson and the Olympians would be an amazing name for a band. We can skip that discussion and instead just talk about your work on this movie, because your song, To Feel Alive, is the main theme for that soundtrack, but your voice can sort of just be felt throughout the movie's score. And I'm curious, how integrated did you wind up becoming in the process of making that whole film? Because I can't imagine it was just something where they were like, send us the song and leave us alone.
Yeah, that was one of the greatest experiences I've ever had. Andrew Lockington was the primary composer on that film, and so we started with just me doing vocals for some of the themes that he was working on for the movie, and that was how I came into the project. And because I had done a lot of songwriting for other film and TV things, and I love writing for stories so much. I was really excited about the idea of like at the end of the movie is when Talia comes alive out of the tree, and I really also love writing for mythology archetypes. Anything that's kind of supernatural are all things that are always something that really excites me. So when she was coming alive, I was like, what would it be like if I was, inside her, and what would this feel like to wake up? So I basically, came to Andrew and I was like, I know that nobody has asked me to do this, but I have an idea for an end title song. Would you be open to me like sharing it with you. And so I played the idea for him, and he completely loved it. He was really excited by it. And he did really cool. He wanted to do kind of Beatles inspired orchestral arrangements around it, and this bridge area, and where he kind of really goes there. So it was really fun to write it. It was an amazing opportunity, and also getting into the studio and watching like a huge orchestra conducted by Nicholas Dodds, who's just like James Bond and all this stuff, and a full choir and everything. I mean, it was really the gift of a lifetime to be able to do that. Yeah.
Okay, so when you're making that pitch, you're coming in, you've been brought to this project, and you go to the cat, who I assume is predominantly like in charge, and you say, "Hey, I got an idea for how you should the capstone for this." How nervous were you making that pitch?
I mean, Andrew's like the nicest guy in the world. He's so lovely, and and we also are really friends now. I consider him also a mentor, and so because it also wasn't, it wasn't like, I don't know. I think it felt natural with him, and I was like a little like nervous, I guess, but also just because we became friends, and he's such a sweet person, and I would feel awkward doing that with most other people. Like, I am not a great picture of myself, truly. And I feel awkward doing it's one of actually my weaknesses in life, is actually like trying to pitch myself, and and everybody's giving me shit about it constantly. So but in this particular case, it was just because he's a great guy, really.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about your music, because I actually was reading an interview with you in Rock Mommy, which I want to also get us to Moms and Music. But first, this really struck with me. You talked about how balancing being a mother, balancing your mental and physical health meant that you had to pare things down, and you couldn't do everything. And one of the things that jumped out to me, you talked about limiting yourself with tools. Are you talking about musical tools? Or are you talking about what specifically there? Because that really resonated with me.
Oh, well, I'll have to remember what I was talking about.
I can give you your full quote if it would help you.
Limiting
Hey, come on. I quoted her cool ass bio. Like, help her out, man.
Well, specifically, you said, I'm limiting myself with tools, schedules, and knowing when to call it a day. This is referencing that previous Reddit
Yes.
post, instead of endlessly obsessing over things.
Yeah, I think look, I'm neurodivergent. I'm odd HD. I can get very into lots of different projects, ideas, tools, things. Like, I'm very passionate about a number of things. I get very excited about things. So I think for me, that's really about being able to say no to things that are really it hasn't always been easy for me to say no to doing things I always want to be like, yeah, let me go for that. But I think saying no to things, learning where to have boundaries, and also if we're talking about tools, there are certain tools that I use as accommodations and things like that kind of help me do things a little easier and keep myself on track a little bit more. But that's more on like the tech nerd stuff, not so much on the the boundaries and staying focused on projects, which is probably the main thing.
Well, and that makes sense to me, because I'm looking at like your music and your art generally, between the Tiff Randall stuff that you can find on Spotify and I Am Eve, there's quite a diversity there amongst what you've done. And one of the things that I talked about in the last segment that I was really impressed by is how you managed to line up the visual aspect, like your album art specifically, with the music. How did you pull that off? And as a follow-up, how do you know when that is done?
When which part of it is done?
when you've found the right album art, when you are complete, when you've got the right album art for the single or for the EP or for the record, how do you know when you've got the right thing and to move on?
Yeah. I mean, I think the albums that I've done, so again, like I come from like story and concept. And that usually comes first for me. I really like creating story threads. I like world building. You know, especially with I Am Eve, I would say like I Am Eve has been, you know, it's kind of it's its own world, it's its own like very like sacred area that's got very I think I do the world building in different ways in different projects, but that one has its own that I've kind of like really deep dived into. And so how do I know when it's done? I don't know. I if I don't like it, I, you know, toss it out. But I mean, I think, you know, usually I have had pretty strong ideas related to the album or the song, you know, of what I want things to look like Starman, and, you know, is really like, I think, it's not my favorite of the songs per se, but like the visual for that is, I think, my favorite of all of them, which is like this whole world made of body painted parts and this like spacey cosmic world that was representing the song. And this part of the I Am Eve story was all archetype based. Most of what I'm doing with I Am Eve is like unraveling the onion with like archetypes and different like growing pieces. So the Starman piece was the, you know, as you're pulling apart these pieces of yourself and your psyche, and you're kind of like meeting these different parts of yourself, eventually you get into a place where like your yin and yang can come together, and kind of that's when transformation can happen into the next phase. So that was done in that video, but like also represented with like the soulmate coming together. So it was kind of the yin and yang, the masculine, the feminine, these two beings coming together, uniting into like this cosmic fabric to create this world. And I don't know, I think I had a lot of weird visions. That one was really fun because I had this picture in my mind of what the world looked like. And then I played this show at the Perch in Los Angeles. And I had these really strong images, and I was like, what is this in my mind? I need to find these images for this piece. And I'm playing a show at the Perch, and it was on the rooftop, and there was an artist that had his stuff displayed. And I kid you not, it was the exact pictures in my mind that I saw. This guy was the painter. So it was just this really weird connection thing. So he ended up doing the body paint for that. And I've had some other weird things like that. Like I know you mentioned Throw Me a Line before. That was also another really weird one where it was like, go online and look for a video director that knows how to do these. Like, I don't know, I just got a weird voice in my head, and I went on Craigslist and I was like, video director. And I pulled up this guy who was like looking to do otherworldly videos. I'm doing blah, 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 blah. And I found this guy, and I was like, you're my person. Here's my song concept. Here's the video concept, you know, so just kind of weird things like that. I don't know. It's always been weird that way.
It's really cool, Zach, to hear her talk about the level of depth and detail and just thought that she puts into these projects that are ancillary to the music, right? A lot of artists, you were talking about a little bit about this in the first segment, Zach, where after you finish the song, it's like, okay, I need the album artwork. All right, let's just find something so we can have it for Spotify. Or, oh, I got to make a music video. Let's just throw something together so that we can say we made a music video. But the way that Tiff talks about this stuff, Zach, like you can tell like this matters to her as much as the core product does. And she wants all of it to have a unifying theme, to have that unifying concept. And it definitely shows in the videos and in the artwork that she's putting together.
It's so cool. I cannot wait to, like, I love concept music generally, and I can't wait to deep dive this on my own time. But I also, Tiff, can you talk to us about Mamas in Music? Because I was going through that website of yours and thinking this is something really cool and really unique that I think the entertainment industry really needs.
Yeah. Yes, of course. Yeah, we launched in 2019. I had my child in 2018, and I was going through postpartum and going through a lot of the throes of being a new mother, trying to kind of figure it out. And how I'm going to continue. And my management went a different direction like 6 weeks after. So it was like, just all sorts of stuff going on. I was like, how am I going to do this? What does this look like for me? I was looking for a community or a group out there, organization for mothers in music specifically. And didn't find anything. So I put an SOS out to like a bunch of different music business groups. And I ended up connecting with another mother in the UK named Mary Leigh. And we just started talking about what this could look like to build a community. Why didn't it exist? What could it look like? How do we connect the dots? And also just a lot of the stuff that we were dealing with, the stigmas that we were feeling and the fears we were feeling, and how do we do we need to be silent about it? There's so many, there's always been so many kind of weird taboos and conversations around, becoming a mother, what that means, what people will think of you, like, will your career continue, all that stuff. So we just wanted to kind of say, F that. How do we bring other mothers together, like collectively, and combat that, talk about it, be there for each other. And little by little, like, how could we immerse ourselves with other organizations in the entertainment industry to shift those conversations.
Tell us about some of the projects and initiatives your organization has going on right now to fulfill those goals.
We're collective action based. So it's really like mothers that come in, we all bring kind of opportunities for each other. Like we've done some production albums, for example, with APM and BMG. So we just released one with BMG called Emotive Pop. A bunch of women on that have gotten placements on Love Island and things like that. So that's one thing that we did recently. We speak at like conferences. We have panels for, they're like educational or emotional support. We have a lot of conversations with people out there just like talking about why it's important to shift the conversation and the stigmas, and, talking to other companies about how we could actually maybe create bridges and supports and things that, could provide more opportunities and resources for caregivers. A lot of like people are just bringing in opportunities into, there's women who've gotten jobs through it and things like that. So, and a lot of it is really honestly just community, friendship, being seen, like not feeling alone in that conversation. And I think that is really important. I think that we've seen already a lot of change happening in the industry in the last years as well. There's new caregiving initiatives that are coming out with big programs. Music Cares just launched one, and so there's just I think there is a lot of motion happening.
And what has the experience been like for you putting on that social entrepreneurship hat? Have you found that starting a nonprofit is something that comes naturally to you? I only ask because when I've interviewed other artists turned social entrepreneurs, I hear two different sides of it. Some are like, yep, running a nonprofit is just a natural extension of my art. It's a smooth transition for me. And others are like, man, these are completely different skill sets. I'm still doing it, but it's just brand new to me. Where do you fit on that spectrum?
Yeah, definitely on that second part. I mean, I would say like community building is something that's very natural for me. Advocating, not being shy about saying what needs to be said, come natural to me. When it comes to the organizational elements, I feel grateful that I have some amazing women and men who are, in our corner, who are, really working to evolve things. But I'm always the first person to be like, I it's probably not like the best way to say something, but like, I mean, I think there could be somebody better than me running things, I mean, I think I do question myself sometimes, going like, I'm doing this because I believe in it. I think it's important. That's why I'm here. And it wasn't being done before. It didn't exist before. So like, that's important to me. And I'm like, doesn't matter. It has to be done. Somebody's got to do it. But also, you know, I'm an artist. I'm not a business person. And so there's a lot of finding my way with that, you know, and going to other people who are on the business side to be like, you know, is this the right choice?
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, so yeah, it's really interesting. I get a lot of encouragement from like people that are on the business side, and they're always like, you know, they like to tell me that I'm doing good, but
and I'm a little curious about the role that your neurodivergence plays in all of this. Like, do you find that it can be an asset because you're already pretty comfortable doing a bunch of different diverse things at the same time? Or is it something that you have to kind of work within because just having that can make it difficult to handle a wide range of tasks?
It plays so many roles in so many ways.
It contains multitudes.
Yes, it's complex. I mean, like, you know, it's very funny because I have like ADHD. So like the ADHD part of me is always, you know, slightly in battle with the autistic part of my brain. So, you know, with the ADHD, that brings a lot of energy and, you know, excitement and, you know, connection in many ways. It definitely has to be wrangled in. And I'm always telling everyone to make sure to, you know, keep me in check around any of that. I think that's, you know, that's important. I mean, I think I think one of the big things is that like you know, you talked a bit about like, you know, personal growth and personal journey earlier in your in the episode. I think for me, one of the big things that I've been discovering is my like needing to like learning to trust myself and my voice and not necessarily like second guess myself when I'm speaking with people in the community and things like that. It's kind of interesting because when I'm working on my music, it provides a really amazing landscape for me to speak really authentically in my own pace, in my own way, how I want to, without, you know, worrying about, you know, how my words might land with anyone. I think because I've always been like, you know, pretty blunt and out with my words. It's interesting being in a community or an organization, being responsible for what comes out of my mouth and always making sure that it lands in the right way. And that's been an interesting, you know, thing just to kind of experience, like coming out. It's like coming out of my music cocoon and being like, here's me in my mouth. I don't know if that answers you or makes sense what I just said, but
it was tremendous. Our guest has been Tiff Randall. She's an artist, composer, producer, and the co-founder of Mamas in Music. You can find out more about our guest's work by visiting mamasinmusic.org and tiffrandall.com. Tiff, this has been awesome. I feel like you get us and we get you, and we've been having a good time. Before we let you go, we got one last question for you. Do you have any last tips for the indie creators out there to help them move their careers forward?
Yeah. I think it's really, it's an interesting time because there's all of this stuff about being content creators. So I might not be the right person to ask because all of that stuff annoys me to no end. You know, I really, for me, at the end of the day, music for me always has to be about self-expression that's like honest, and you know, that comes from all the way through, whether it's like the instruments or the lyrics or whatever. So I think we can get really caught up in a lot of noise, and then we can lose the beat on, you know, who we are and what we do, and why we're doing it. So for me, I'm just constantly bringing myself back to letting go of all of the strategies and all of the words that are out there, you know, because they're changing constantly, and it's never going to be what you think it is when you set out. And even if you go down some path that somebody else does, it's going to be some other thing. And, so at the end of the day, it's all a waste of time unless we're just doing the thing that feels absolutely right to us in that moment. And it's a long game. There's no quick way there. It's like you got to do it for the right reasons, or just be a content creator.
Well, I would say that creating authentic art has worked pretty dang well for you so far. So I'd stay the course if I were you. Our thanks to Tiff Randall and Zach Sloan, and our thanks to producer Lauren, and of course, our thanks to all of you viewers and listeners for checking out Break the Business. We'll see you next week.